girlfriend and I were together for 4 years before we broke up. We shared a mutual friend, and I first saw her when a picture of the two of them was posted online. I thought my girlfriend looked amazing, and I slid into her DMs. We started talking, and we hit it off. She was a portrait photographer, so a lot of the photos on her Instagram were of her work. I didn't see any signs of her being in a relationship when I did my cursory glance at her page. She and I had been dating for 6 months when she came clean to me about her past. She told me that when we started talking, she was in a relationship. I had absolutely no idea about it. If I had known, I wouldn't have even messaged her to begin with. I was very upset with the news, but she managed to calm me down and explain herself. She described the relationship as being extremely tumultuous. She and her boyfriend were volatile with each other, and it was a toxic situation. She told me that he had been guilty of cheating several times in the past. What she said didn't make it okay that she cheated on him with me, but I could understand where she was coming from. The way she framed it made it seem like she was stuck in a really bad relationship. I assumed that when she met me, she had a reason to get out, so she did. We had a long discussion about everything, and she swore to me that she would never do anything like that again. She told me that was eating her alive having to lie to somebody as long as she was. The guilt was overwhelming to her, and it was the worst feeling she'd ever had. She cried, and I comforted her. Looking back, I should have ended things right then. She pretty much confessed to doing the worst possible things she could have done in a relationship, and I comforted her for it. I ain't the fool even thinking about that now. Years passed, and our relationship was going very well. By that point, I'd completely fallen head over heels in love with her. Just we were living together, and we had 2 dogs. I thought that I'd finally found the perfect woman for me. Both of us were successful in our work. I worked in a pharmaceutical testing lab, and I climbed very high on the ladder there. I was managing several teams of people, and I was accomplishing a lot of my goals with the job. On top of that, my girlfriend was getting popular on social media for her work. Her portraits were phenomenal, and she was making a name for herself. One thing she did to try and get her name out there was free photography sessions for select people. She would do headshots and things like that for up-and-coming models or influencers just to get her name out there. She didn't do a lot of those, but she did them a couple of times a year. That was how she met her affair partner, who we'll call Connor. Connor was the stereotypical male model. He was tall, with dark hair and blue eyes with a lot of muscles. He looks like a walking perfume ad. I saw him when she was looking through his Instagram account, trying to decide who to work with through the free service she offered. He had a growing following online, specifically through his TikTok account, where he posted a lot of thirst traps for what she was looking for. He was a perfect fit for her, even though Connor was very good looking. I was secure about my relationship. I trusted my girlfriend, and after the talk we had about how she cheated and it made her feel as bad as it did, I never thought she would do it again. Plus, she had worked with countless models before, so I didn't see why Connor would be any different. They did their initial photo shoots, and my girlfriend told me all about it when she talked to me. She was raving about how skilled he was and how easy everything went. They built up a friendly rapport, and my girlfriend told me that she was excited about working with him again. I was a little bit confused about that, because the whole point of the service she offered was to give them a free opportunity to plug her essentially. But she told me that Connor had a bunch of ideas for photo shoots that he wanted for his accounts, and he wanted to work with her on them. I had no issue with it. I thought it was great that something she did was immediately going to benefit her and get her more work over the next several weeks. I noticed my girlfriend's demeanor changing. She was withdrawing from me, and we stopped being intimate with each other. And she was spending more and more time out of the house. I asked her about why she was absent more often than normal, and she told me that she was busy with clients. I only noticed that was a lie when she told me one day that she was doing a photo shoot with a friend of hers, and later that day, Connor posted a picture of the two of them together. They were at lunch, and I knew it wasn't an old photo because it was the outfit my girlfriend left in. I realized that she lied to me about going to see Connor, and I started getting suspicious. The insecurity that I hadn't felt before started to creep up. I didn't meet most of her clients, so Connor and I had never crossed paths. She didn't post me on her Instagram, just like she hadn't posted about her ex-boyfriend. I started to think that there could be a good chance that Connor didn't know she was in a relationship, and something similar was happening. I started digging around on Connor's Instagram page to try to find any more clues about the two of them. I happened to notice while I was looking that the picture Connor had posted of him with my girlfriend was deleted. That immediately clocked me as weird. I didn't understand why he would delete the photo unless maybe my girlfriend told him to. My girlfriend edited all of her photos on her computer and usually posted them from there. So I thought there might be a chance that her Instagram was already logged in. Luckily for me, I was right. I started looking through her messages to figure out what was happening. I immediately found evidence that they were having an affair. They were in the early stages of the relationship, still getting to know each other, mostly through everything I saw. I never saw one mention that my girlfriend wasn't single. It made sense that Connor might not know about me. I took some screenshots of those conversations and I emailed them to myself. I didn't know what to do exactly. So much of my life was entangled with hers, and it was going to be messy breaking up, but I didn't have much of a choice. The more I started thinking about it, the more I started thinking about her ex-boyfriend. It was clear to me then that my girlfriend was a liar, so I wondered if she had been lying about him too. I did some digging and found out who he was. I sent him a message on Instagram that same day and asked him if we could talk about her. He replied within a couple of hours and told me that he would be willing to. We set a time to have a video call later that evening. My girlfriend was still out with Connor, presumably sleeping with him. I called her ex and we started talking. The story he gave me was completely different from what my girlfriend said. It was very similar to mine even. They were both happy together until someone new showed interest in her and she decided she wanted out. He made it seem like it was all very sudden and there weren't any signs leading up to it. One day they were talking about their futures and the next she was completely packed up and out of his house. She didn't even break up with him properly. She took all of her things and left, and he had to harass her to get an answer for what happened. He advised me to get away from her as soon as I could. My girlfriend got home late that night, and I lied to her and said that I had a lot of work I had to catch up on and wouldn't be going to bed with her. While she was asleep, I decided that I was going to message Connor about everything. I had a strong suspicion that he had no idea what she had done to two different people, and I thought he might like to know. I messaged him on Instagram with my story, alongside screenshots that my girlfriend's ex sent to me. I told him that if he wanted to talk about it more, just let me know, and I'd be happy to talk to him. The following morning, I had a message from him where he told me that he was shocked by what I said and wasn't sure if he should believe it. I tried to send him proof that I wasn't in a relationship with my girlfriend, and that seemed to persuade him. We had a brief conversation where he confirmed everything that I thought. My girlfriend never told him that she was in a relationship when they started talking. He even asked her if she was single the first day they met, and she told him yes. He was angry and he felt like he had been lied to, but he felt guilty for ending my relationship. I tried to make sure he didn't feel that way because it wasn't his fault. My girlfriend left that day to meet with a client, or at least that's what she said. Well, she was gone. I packed up as much of my stuff as I could, and I went to stay in a hotel room. I figured I would give her a taste of her own medicine. Later that day, my girlfriend called me countless times trying to see where I was. She was hurt and confused that I left, especially since I took the dogs with me. I didn't tell her where I was. I figured going no contact with no explanation would be hurtful and leave her with a lot of unresolved issues. I was thinking long-term rather than short-term with that one. Connor deleted a lot of the photos that he had posted that my girlfriend had taken. He even posted on his Instagram story some of the screenshots with my name blurred out. He commented on how you can't just trust anyone these days. It would only take a little bit of detective work to figure out who it was talking about. Which, from the look of it, my girlfriend lost quite a bit of followers after that happened. Connor broke things off with her entirely, and she was single. I knew that the house that we were living in together wasn't one that she could afford to keep up with on her own, so she was forced to move. In the end, it seems like she got a nice taste of her own medicine, and because of her actions, she lost a lot of potential business with other people. Knowing now that Connor has brand deals with a couple of big-name designers, I'm sure she is kicking herself for that. He could have taken her name to a whole new height. Your girlfriend seems to be a pathological liar. It's unfortunate that it happened to you, but it's good that you found out the truth. I am curious if it's even limited to the three of you guys that she's pulled something similar with. I don't understand why she would start seeing somebody else while she was already in a relationship if she was planning on leaving the other person. I know some people like the safety of a relationship, but that doesn't make it okay for you to cheat on your partner. If she didn't want to be alone or lose the security of a relationship, then she should have worked on herself rather than trying to jump into another one. It seems like you and Connor are somewhat friends now, which is nice since you were both wronged by the same person. I think it shows a lot of class that the two of you have been able to do that rather than fight with each other. I agree. Seeing that Connor is doing very well in his career is probably a slap in the face to your girlfriend. Her whole deal with it was getting recognition for herself, and losing someone like Connor probably had an impact on her business. Anyways, let's now move on to our next story. My wife and I have been married for almost 15 years. We were high school sweethearts and each other's first partner. We were always told growing up that we had puppy love and it wasn't going to last as long as we thought it would. We started getting very serious about each other in high school and our parents warned us against that. However, we didn't take any of their advice. We both got jobs and moved in with each other right after high school, and a year later we were getting married. Altogether, we have been together for 20 years. We did everything together. She was my best friend, and I thought she was my soulmate. Over the years, we had 2 kids and we managed to buy our house and settle down into a nice little life. I worked in construction and eventually took on a bigger role in the company. So my wife didn't have to work. She stayed home and took care of the house and the kids, and we were completely fine with that. One of the only fortunate things about our relationship was that we were the only people we needed. Over the years, friends came and went, but we were always together. That didn't bother me because I was pretty introverted and didn't have the desire to go out with friends often. However, my wife was different. She wanted those friends, and she wanted to have girls' nights and go drink wine and gossip at a friend's house. I knew she felt lonely sometimes, so I tried to make her feel loved as much as possible, but my company wasn't the same as the company of a good girlfriend. She saw a targeted ad for Bumble one day, and if you don't know, they have a friend feature. My wife told me about it, and she downloaded it with me. She explicitly told me that she was downloading it so I wouldn't see the Bumble app on her phone and think she was cheating. We looked through some of the people who had accounts together, and she started messaging some people. It was a lot of talking and virtual friendships at first, but then a couple of people wanted to get together in person. She went out with one woman a few times, and they really clicked. I met her when my wife invited her over for dinner. She seemed nice and my wife got along with her well, but my wife wanted to have more than just one friend. She continued using the app to try to find some people to expand her friend group with. But I wasn't pestering her about who she was talking to, because from what it looked like to me, she only had women showing up on her page. I didn't realize that men showed up on it as well. They just didn't use the friend part of the app as often. My wife started talking to someone else on the app, and I assumed it was another woman. They were talking regularly, and my wife was always happy to talk to them. She met them for coffee a few times, and they went to run errands together around town while I was at work and the kids were at school. I never thought twice about it. They had a very gender-neutral name. For this, I'll call them John. Whenever my wife would tell me about him, I just assumed it was a woman. She never told me that it was a man because she knew I would have been uncomfortable with it. I only realized it was a man when she invited me to dinner with him. We got to the restaurant, and he was already waiting for us at the table. And I thought that his partner was going to be coming out any minute, and that was who my wife was talking about. But when I saw them together, I immediately started worrying. They had a ton of jokes with each other. They seemed like they had a vast shared history together, even though they only knew each other for a month and a half. They seemed to be a lot closer than I thought they were. They mentioned going places and doing things that I had no idea they did. It occurred to me that there was a lot my wife wasn't telling me about their relationship. When everything was over and we went home, I brought everything up to my wife. I told her that I had no idea that John was a guy. I was a guy and I didn't know if I was okay with the relationship. She got defensive and told me that I was controlling. I didn't want to come across that way, and I did see where she was coming from, but she wasn't seeing what I was seeing. It looked like they were both giddy to be around each other. My wife swore up and down that nothing happened between them, and they just meshed so well together that she didn't want to cut him off. I trusted my wife, and I wanted her to be happy, so I just kept an eye on things. Looking back, she was having an emotional affair before anything else. I started to realize that she stopped coming to me about a lot of things, and she was going to John about those things. She was complaining about me to him and getting things out of the relationship that she wasn't getting from me anymore. We stopped talking about a lot of things, and eventually we stopped having sex with each other. I think that was where their affair turned from emotional to physical. There were several weeks where it seemed like she was going to see John at least 3 times a week. She was spending far too much time with him. I was getting pretty fed up with her behavior, and it seemed like my wife just wasn't telling me the truth about everything they were doing. So I went through her phone. I found dozens of messages between both of them where they were confessing their feelings for each other. Apparently, she was at his house and they got a little too tipsy and he kissed her. Initially, my wife told him that she was married and they couldn't see each other. He accepted that. Then a day later, my wife told him that she couldn't stop thinking about it. They both agreed to see where the relationship could go. From the way it sounded, they slept together the next time they saw each other. And told my wife that he thought he loved her, and my wife said the same thing. My wife was opposed to getting a divorce though, and she told him that, at least not until the kids were in college. John told her that he could wait. I was heartbroken and angry, and I wanted to get revenge on both of them for lying to me and going behind my back. My gut instinct about them not being together was right, and my wife made me feel guilty for thinking that anything could happen. I wanted to get back at her badly. Before I found out what I did, my wife told me that John wanted to get together for dinner again. Knowing what I did about their affair, it rubbed me the wrong way that he wanted that. It seemed almost cruel that he would go out of his way to spend time with me. Because I wanted to humiliate them, I agreed to go. We got a babysitter for the night, and we went out to a nice restaurant. But John brought a date with him, which was surprising to me. My wife hadn't mentioned anything about him seeing anyone. It seemed new, but knowing what I did, I figured it was probably a farce. Dinner started nicely, and everybody got to know each other better. I made sure I wasn't drinking anything, because I wanted to be as level-headed as possible when the prime opportunity for me to send my piece came. The dining room at the restaurant was pretty crowded, and it was tame for the most part. We lived in a small town, so I even recognized some of the people there. Like toward the middle of the meal, I decided I was going to stand up and give a toast. Everybody else at the table was a little taken aback by the gesture because it was a strange thing to do at a friendly gathering. I told John how happy I was that he met my wife. I knew that she wouldn't be alone when I left her. He awkwardly laughed, and I turned to my wife to tell her that I knew exactly what was happening and there was no point in lying. By that point, the date that John brought was off-put by him, and several other people in the dining room were watching as I finished my toast. My wife was quietly asking me to stop and tugging on my arm for me to sit down. I could tell she was embarrassed by what I was saying. When everything was over, I left the dining room and my wife followed behind me. She chastised me for embarrassing her in front of everybody in the restaurant, but I told her she humiliated me. She ended up telling me that she felt like she wasn't getting everything she wanted out of the relationship. She said she had been feeling that way for a while and she wished that things could have been different. She even told me that if she could have done everything over again, she wouldn't have married me right out of high school. If I had known then what I know now, I would have done the exact same thing. Our parents were right to suggest we didn't get together so young. That didn't excuse the fact that she cheated on me. Never once in our relationship had I even considered that as an option. I told her that we would be getting a divorce, and that was all there was to it. I didn't care if she wanted to stay together for the kids. I wanted to get one immediately. I figured it would be better to have them in separate households than one household with parents who couldn't stand each other. We ended up going through a divorce, and my wife didn't get anything from me. We have joint custody of the kids, which I still stand by as being the best decision for us. It came to my attention that she tried blaming me for breaking up the family. My kids were angry with me at first. I didn't like knowing that she was lying to them, so I told them the truth. Their attitudes changed quickly after that. Our youngest never wants to visit with her anymore, and I have to force them to go. About a year ago, my wife suggested that we try to work things out for the kids' sake. I saw through what she wanted right away. I think she missed being married and having the traditional familial household. She probably also didn't like that. Her kids hated her for what she did. I told her there was no way I would ever consider it. She and John tried staying together for a while after the divorce, but it didn't work out. Honestly, I think they only liked each other because of the allure of a secret romance. The words about the affair traveled quickly in town, and I think that affected John's dating prospects too. Oh, I am so sorry you had to go through all of that. You raised your concerns to your wife, and she made it seem more innocent than it was. It does seem like maybe she tried to deny those feelings, but if she had them, she should have cut everything off with John to begin with. She had an emotional affair before a physical one, and 9 times out of 10 emotional affairs evolve. If she is talking to your children and trying to make it seem like it's your fault that the divorce happened, then that is pretty messed up. With everything you described, she sounds like she can be manipulative, but that takes it to a whole different level. It must have been difficult to tell the truth, but it would be better for them in the end. They would grow up hating you only to realize they'd been misguided. That could have caused a lot of issues down the line. Your wife really threw away everything for nothing. She recognized that, and she tried to fix it, but she couldn't. I think it's good that you didn't give her a second chance, because more than likely, she would end up betraying your trust again. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Take care.